So, you got donuts and you didn't like send me donuts over here?
What?
I mean, between us, we've got like 10 kids or whatever. We could have had somebody run some Krispy Kreme donuts over here to me.
Man, this is a Mickey D's Krispy Kreme week. Didn't you know?
Wait, you're mixing Mickey D's and Krispy Kreme? Now, I'm not one of those
Well,
folks that thinks, McDonald's is Satan, the Satan of food, but you're mixing them both together? That sounds interesting.
now, if you recollect, last week everybody was hating on Whataburger. Remember, Whataburger matters.
Everybody but me.
Well,
I wasn't hating on Whataburger. I'm all
I
about
wasn't
Whataburger.
either. I wasn't either. But look, this week, Krispy Kreme and McDonald's is the victim down
Wow.
in Baton Rouge.
We're just
These
like,
mass Nazis, they're going after Krispy Kreme.
wow, we're just going to go through like the whole chain of fast food. Okay, so we've got, I don't know, 9 or 10 people starting to sign on. We're going to go to our 2.5 minute, I always forget, I'm the one that made the countdown, our 2.5 minute countdown. Folks, y'all start sharing it out, tag your friends, send text messages, all that good stuff. We do have a guest tonight who is running for the Bossier Parish Police Jury District 5 seat. So we're going to be discussing issues with Mindy Wardlaw here in a little bit. And we got plenty more to do. And we have some actual good things to say about Raymond Cruz. He did awesome at a
Now,
meeting.
y'all get your Big Mac and get your Krispy Kreme donuts tonight.
And
Get them ready.
get your calorie counter. We'll be back in about 2.5 minutes. Here we go. Did you hear the music at all during our countdown?
At the beginning,
Oh,
but
okay.
then as we got towards the end, I couldn't hear it at all. But I
Well,
might have been having a little bit of a sugar rush with them Krispy Kremes.
Well, yeah, no. Have you eaten the whole bag yet, or what's the status of them?
Well, there's a half a dozen down. I got a half a dozen left to go.
Ah, you dog, you. Okay, so I'm steady sharing out things over here. What's on tap tonight?
Well, as you know, and as we have discussed, we've got an announcement to make tonight about our next Bossier Watch show next
Oh,
Tuesday.
yes. Yes, we do. And what is going to be special about that particular show?
Well, As you recall, in the past, we did a debate that was very successful in the Bessie race.
Yes, we did.
And so we see the need for another debate, but yet this debate is going to be in South Bossier for the city council race between those candidates running down there to replace Shane Cheatham.
Well, you know what? As a matter of fact, speaking of that Bessie race, let's kind of refresh everybody a little bit. I've got about a 30-second clip of that I want to hit play on, and because it was actually a very successful little debate that we had. So here we go.
Mr. Mikovich, you got your facts wrong. Louisiana Federation for Children never took a position on Common Core. You know who did? Stand for Children. You know who Stand for Children?
You're wrong.
No, Ms. Mikovich, I gave you
wrong.
I gave you time. I
John
gave you
and
time.
Michael.
With respect.
You're actually
Let
John-
me actually have mine.
John and Michael, I've stopped your time. When someone's answering the question, we're not going to have you, interrupt the other. They finish their answer. When we get the next question, if you want to respond to the previous answer that the opponent gave, you can at that time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, your audio sounds great. That was one of my favorite parts. You did such a nice professional job. Because I would have said, hey boys, let's go on out to the parking lot and settle this now.
Whoo, boy, I thought it was going to get there, I'll tell you, because Bellerin and Milkovich were going at it, son.
Yeah, they were. Now, hopefully, with our event that we have coming up Tuesday night, I like to see healthy debate and even a little bit of argumentativeness. But hopefully it doesn't go to blows. So anyway, let's promo it out. I got a little screen deal here. I think I'll put that up on the screen. Looks like we've got a city council debate coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We got Mr. Michael Lombardino. A lot of people will recall him from Bean's Restaurant from years past. Mm-hmm. And you've got Mr. Darren Ashley. I spoke to him on the phone. I really enjoyed my conversation with him. And we got Brian Hammonds. Brian's been a fixture down in South Bossier for a lot of years. And it's going to be good to have all three of these guys, see what they have on tap for the future of that district and which way they envision the city of Bossier going.
Yeah, now let's make sure everybody's clear. So it's going to be next Tuesday evening, which is August the 24th. We're actually going to start the debate at 7:30. Is that correct, Duke?
Yeah, 7:30. We may go live a little bit between 7 and 7:30, just kind of a little warm up and to tease things out. But 7:30 is when we're going to kick it off, and we look forward to hearing these folks tell us what they got in mind. And the public, we encourage you to watch and to ask any questions online, because I think we're going to try to take a few questions from those that are posed live.
Okay.
So,
as after the show is over this evening, then I'll set up a little scheduled reminder and all that, so that folks will be reminded to watch and join in with commentary.
hey, we've got some South Bossier people watching. They commented on there, and we've got Terry Norris, Barry Butler, Jim Anderson. Got quite a few folks already tuned in.
Yeah, so we're doing pretty good so far. We're at about 47 viewers and climbing. Okay, so let's move on. We don't want to keep our guest waiting in the wings too much longer.
Well, a little update, and for everybody watching, we are going to jump neck deep into the Health and Welfare Committee meeting down in Baton Rouge. Woo, boy.
They literally dragged some people out of that meeting. Literally, not figuratively.
Yeah,
I guess
and it was a marathon. It was 7 hours, Rex.
A 7-hour meeting?
It was a 7-hour meeting, and they didn't finish the meeting.
Wow. So yeah, so folks, we're going to share some of that out here in the second part of the show. Here probably in 20-30 minutes. We'll see how the interview with Mindy goes, and we'll just kind of take it from there. So, what else do we have on tap tonight?
Well, before we get into the mask mandate, have you been watching the national news and what's going on?
Yeah, the whole Afghanistan thing, yeah, and the people on the planes are exiting the planes and all that.
Oh my gosh, I got to tell you, it kind of struck me. I mean, I was watching it, and Man, it moved me because it in my opinion has a lot of similarities to what we're seeing today in society. With the mask and all
Yeah.
this stuff, and it's think about it. You've got the Taliban on one side, you've got all these people in the middle, that are just bouncing back and forth like a ping pong, and then you've got the United States. I mean, obviously we're leaving now, but but take the United States, takes the Taliban out, but you got two different factions fighting for control, and then you got this larger faction right in the middle that aren't doing anything.
Yeah, that's like, what do they do? Yeah, of course, I got my soapbox for that topic when we get to it, and we'll see that may make a lot of people uneasy on the Republican Party, but anyway.
I think there's a little similarity to what's going on today and the times we're seeing with what we're seeing there, because would you not agree, the largest majority of our population, they're not paying attention to things. They are a little bit now because it's coming to their front doorsteps, but it's almost as if you've got two factions fighting for control, one saying wear a mask, another saying don't wear a mask, and then you got all these people in the middle that are non-denominational, and they're just being bounced around back and forth.
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely some similarities between all of that in the bigger picture of things. And yeah, we can absolutely get into that. Barry Butler says, is AOC our version of the Taliban? I don't know how well she get along with the actual Taliban, Barry, because, like they like to hide women and stone them, literally stone them to death, or just stone them after they do it old school, like burying them in the ground up to their head. Anyway, so okay, what's next? We'll get to comments here in a minute. And folks, comment away. We'll get to some of your comments here shortly.
Well, in the last show, we talked about as Bossier City turns a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how Chris Smith was going to be proposing a time change,
Right.
To have the council meetings in the afternoon so that more of the public would be able to attend.
Right.
I was talking to somebody today, and not to put the cart before the horse, but obviously it failed. Interestingly, Chris Smith got a second.
Oh, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Did he at least get a second?
You're not going to believe who.
No. Who would? It could have been David Montgomery. No way.
No way.
Okay,
It was not
okay.
David. It wasn't David Montgomery. David ain't going to jump off in there with Chris. He ain't going to do it. He'd as soon spit on him as he would even look at him.
That's probably true. So, all right. So who gave him the second?
You're still going to be shocked. It was Bubba Don.
Bubba Don?
Bubba
Wait a
Don.
minute. Why would Bubba Don give him a second? Oh, I know why. There's that whole recall effort going on. And he's trying to seem like the good guy. Good for him.
Well, you would think if he seconded it, and that if he was fearful of the recall, he would vote for it. But in fact, he didn't vote for it. He voted against it.
So he seconded it and voted against it. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too. You heard that, South Bossier. He seconded it and then voted against it. That's great.
He seconded and voted. He said he only had one phone call, and he didn't find it credible that there was a lot of people sincere about, wanting to come to a meeting and come later. And I was talking to somebody else, and they made an interesting point. They said, well, one of the reasons that existing politicians don't want to have meetings later in the afternoon, because if you change the meeting times, you open up the ability of everyday working people who have a 8-to-5 job being able to run for office and be able to participate.
Oh, gosh, that's just be horrible.
You'd be creating competition. I thought it was a good point, actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, good for Bubba Don. At least Chris got a second on a motion this time, so we'll have to give him that little bit of credit.
He did.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Well, I think we should jump off into the police jury again.
Oh, do I get to make fun of Doug Rimmer this time, or Patrick Jackson, or Philip Rogers? Who's on the list?
Well, maybe we're not really jumping on anybody. Maybe we're just going to try to provide insight and do our civic duty to, enlighten folks in the public about a choice that they'll have in a police jury race coming up.
Oh, well, let me click the magical little button and let's hope that everything works. Haha, look, Mindy, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi. Perfect.
Lucy?
So you can hear us, we can hear you. And you may notice we may have a little bit of a delay. We kind of get used to it as we're talking. So
Okay. Sounds good.
okay, so
Well,
Mindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here and the opportunity to talk to you guys, answer any questions for people who are out there who have questions and wonder what I'm doing here and why. And I'd like to share all that with you tonight.
Right. And so I can see the live feed of comments. I don't know if you have your phone going, but if you have your phone going and you watch it, just turn the volume down on your speakers on your phone and you can kind of watch the commentary, but I'll try to throw comments, up as they go along. So folks, anybody watching, if you've got a question for Mindy, put it in the comments. Keep it civil, but it doesn't have to be a softball question either. And, as we go along, we may present some of those. Okay. Duke, guide us through this.
Mindy, glad you're here. So, why on earth would you want to throw yourself into the middle of political chaos?
Well, I've been a realtor for 28 years here. And in doing that, I have watched people get in my car from all over the country and locally. And I hear the comments of what's good about Bossier, what's bad about Bossier. I've driven every street in this parish. I see where there's flooding issues, street issues, look at new zoning that's going on, and the development of Bossier Parish. And I felt I'm doing this already, and I hear probably more citizens and residents complaints and accolades than anyone else does. And so I wanted the opportunity. When I heard that this position was open, I was so excited because there hasn't been an opportunity to have the seat open that a longstanding juror wasn't in the position. And when I heard that Bump was vacating the position, I jumped right in as soon as I heard it and was very excited to be able to share my experience with the citizens of Bossier Parish to make it a better place. I want my family to stay here just like everyone else does, and the parish to continue to grow in the right place.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions coming in, and we have one from Barry Butler. Duke, I think we probably go ahead and start off with this one. What do you think?
Go ahead on.
Okay, so Barry Butler's question is, let me see if I can get it to pop up on the screen. Barry Butler, who is a former police juror, by the way, says, what is your stand on tax increases?
I am not for tax increases at all. I think that one of the attractive things about Bossier Parish and the growth, if anyone has looked at millage rates, that Shreveport is much higher. One of the things that's attractive about Bossier and having people come over to Bossier is because we're doing things so much better. New taxes are not what we need. I think everyone needs to, and one of the things that I'd like to do with other members of the police jury is to look at the budget and see if we're being responsible and using it in the right way. And I think there's other monies that are out there that we can use to put it where the citizens want and where we need it without having to raise taxes. I think there's plenty of money there. There's other issues that are bond issues that are coming due that money can be shifted. I think that we owe it to ourselves first to look at the budget and see what we can do with that.
Well, let me kind of do a little spin-off question from that. So Duke and I and Barry was on the show over this, what was it, Sewer District 1, I think it was, or whatever, which is the whole fiasco that the police jury had going that's been subsidized by like everybody else. So, they have to do, and they've already announced that they're going to do some scheduled fee increases, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, over the next X number of years. So do you consider those fee increases a form of taxation, or what's your stance on the situation with that sewer district and the police jury, buying up all these sewer districts and combining them into one and getting in the sewer business. Do you have a position on that?
I really need to look at that, and that's not a politician answer. I really don't know the answer to that, but I do know that we need to work together with the city of Bossier in order to make the utilities available to everyone and them being cost effective. Um, there may be ways that if we look at other areas of the budget, we can decrease millage rates other areas to where this could balance it out. And, that's just something I really don't have a good handle on yet, but that's my position. If anyone knows me, I get in there and I find out what's going on and I investigate it and I get answers. And the things that I don't know yet, I am new to some of the new ideas that are out there, but I'm going to find out and get answers for everyone and try to make the best decision for the citizens that are out there.
Well, you had at least part of a good answer there about adjusting millage rates downward. I can't remember any other politicians saying that recently. So that's a good start in the right direction.
Mindy, you heard us talking about, Chris Smith had a motion in Bossier City or a resolution to try to move the meeting times, later in the afternoon so that there would be more public participation. Just curious, what's your thoughts on that?
The only thing when it comes to that is in order to get the news out to everyone, I know that I've got friends who are journalists and they need to get the answers out to the public as soon as possible. And so by moving it later, I don't know that we're excluding anyone, but I think that it would exclude the dissemination of information to the public if we moved it later because of the deadlines that the journalists have. And that was the concern that I overwhelmingly heard.
That's a fair point. I didn't even consider traditional dinosaur media in paper and ink.
Well, I know it would actually make it harder on us to put product out on the show that's live. It actually works to our benefit, right, Rex?
Exactly. I didn't even think about the traditional media. Good point, Mindy. All right, so we've got some other questions. Yeah, and of course, we got to go down the path of the Cypress District. I had it in the notes, and Renee Hall just asked it. But Renee says, let me see if I can get this up here. Renee says, where do you stand on the second petition? And if you're not aware, there is a second petition being formed. It's like we've got recall and petition mania around Bossier these days, to remove the current board member appointed by the Bossier Parish Police Jury, who happens to be Robert Berry. As you may or may not be aware, he was in some lawsuit issues and now has some ethics board charges, and it's just one thing after another. Do you currently have a stance on whether the current member should be replaced?
Again, I think that when the police jury, I think where the failure here was when the police jury appoints anyone to any position, that they need to be monitored and just things watched. And I think what happened is in the appointment, I think that things got out of control. And I don't think that the police jury was paying attention to what could have been changed or even to help in any situation to make the situation right for the citizens. So it's not just a matter of Robert Berry, it's a matter of any appointed person that they need to be watched, and they can, I'm sure that there could be a resolution to take them out, but I think it's somewhat of the police jury's position that if they appoint someone, they need to regulate them better.
Okay, fair enough. Duke, you got another
Yeah,
question
well,
brewing there?
I have a statement that I would probably make, and it's more of I guess you could say, a personal privilege thing. I'm going to say here, I don't like, and I'm going to use the term our appointing authorities, and that encompasses the city of Bossier, it encompasses the police jury, school board, all of these different governmental entities that have the ability to appoint people to these boards. Where do you ever see them advertise that they're going to have a vacancy and they want the public to submit names or gather alternative people to participate. You don't ever see that. What you see is all of a sudden there's a meeting, there's a name thrown out there, and suddenly an appointment. It's not really publicized really well. In fact, I mean, maybe Mindy, maybe you've got an idea on that.
Well, I wasn't aware that Bump was stepping down. I actually was working with him in a business transaction and found out that he was stepping down. And when I did find out about it, I immediately went up to the police jury and applied. I was not aware, and the police jury did post it on a couple days prior to that, but I didn't see a lot of advertising or information, or even on the news, that there was a position open. The day of the appointment, I did choose to go up there and I did speak to the police jury, and they chose to appoint my opponent in there right now, who's been in there for just 3 meetings, I think. And I was told that this is what the citizens have a right to speak about. If they don't like their appointment, that there is going to be an upcoming election, and that's why I'm here. Is I do feel that I am a much more qualified candidate, and I do want the citizens to know about me so they have a choice whether to vote one way or another, and hopefully I'll have their support.
Well, that kind of leads right into my next question, which was going to be what separates you from your opponent in this race. So can you kind of, you started off giving your qualifications. Can you kind of list some of the differences between you and your opponent, who is the current interim police juror?
Well, as for myself, I'm a professional business person. Most of my business, I've been in real estate for 28 years. I'm one of the top realtors in the area, which only speaks to my work ethic. When I get into something, I do it full force. I do it with my whole heart, and I make sure that I'm good at it, or else I don't get into it. And that's one of the things that, as a business person, that's my standard. As far as my opponent, she deals a lot with the public and the public entities instead of the business side of it. So that's probably one difference. The other thing is just my experience. When you know what the difference between a forced main and a gravity fed main is, when you're talking about sewage and drainage, when you're talking about developments, I've sat down on 4 or 5 various neighborhoods in the community, and I've helped put it together. I've helped go before Butch Ford and the MPC or the city council or the police jury and say, hey, what is required to make this work? What are your standards to put the right kind of residential neighborhood together? And then on the commercial side, I've helped with a number of commercial projects that have gone in, and I've met with Willowbrook. When we put Willis Knighton in right next to Willowbrook, we made a point to meet with the citizens to see what their negatives or positives about them going in there were, making sure that they liked what was going to go in there, and they had some concerns, and we made sure that those concerns were taken care of, handled. So that's one thing, is that experience. And the biggest thing is knowing this community. I mean, I know where every street is. You can tell me a street and I'll tell you, for the most part, where the drainage problems are, where the streets are bumpy, where there's potholes, where they're failing, because I've sold houses on these streets for 28 years. I've seen what people complain about, like I mentioned before, and what they want in the community, just as far as resources, internet, infrastructure, parks, everything that the police jury addresses. And then lastly, my position on the Board of Realtors. I was the president of the Board of Realtors, elected by over 1,100 members, and I was on their finance committee. So I've looked at budgets of a huge association, looked where we could find member benefits, where we could cut costs. Our dues have gone down, and our benefits have gone up. And those are some things that I'm used to looking for to find where we can cut things from one area and go to another. I'm not going to do it by myself. This is a police jury effort, not a Mindy Wardlaw effort. And that's my goal, is to try to work together to bring the best things, not just for District 5, but for the entire parish, to where everyone has the resources and the good streets and the good amenities and the internet service and everything that they need to make our parish grow better.
Well, interesting. So that kind of sort of leads into this next question that Kenneth Jenkins posted. I'm going to go ahead and add it out here.
Mhm.
And this has been, I've had this issue brought up to me about a current police juror. And so he's saying, could it be said that a real estate person or agent on the police jury is a conflict of interest? What's your response to that?
I don't believe that it is. Rick Avery was a police juror for many, many terms. And obviously, I think if the citizens would have felt that he was in conflict, that he wouldn't have been reelected numerous times. Secondly, there's very few things that I'm involved in that would ever come up for a vote that I would have a personal interest in. If it was, I would certainly recuse myself. But I don't think that the numbers are going to be very few to where with my opponent, I think that there may be conflicts that are much more concerning about the number of times, because she deals directly with the sheriff's department, which will have a lot of issues that come up as the sheriff's department is under the police jury. And so I feel like my conflict would be minor, if any. So the answer is no, I really don't. But if so, of course I would recuse myself. That would be silly to stay in there.
Okay.
Mindy, a lot of folks today, and I'm one. At some point, I feel like a lot of people feel like government at all levels, especially at the federal level, state level, and even at the local level, are more or less disregarding, the citizens. They're stepping on their rights in a lot of different ways, and especially later, like when we talk about, the mask mandates and stuff. And I'm not asking you to comment on that, but a lot of people feel like that, government as a whole is ignoring the will of the people, and that their elected representatives are not, standing up and saying no enough. They're not debating enough. Everything is rubber stamped. It's just business as usual. Things flow through. Are you going to be that elected official that, will openly object? I personally think that a lot of times people who are elected to office, they don't object, they don't say no, because they may not have the answer, or they're scared of maybe looking bad. Are you going to be one of those elected officials that you're willing to stand up there and say no?
If it's the right situation, of course I'm going to say no. What I'm going to do, though, is listen to what everybody else. It's not a Mindy answer; it's a citizen's answer. It may be different than what I feel, but if the citizens are saying that that's not what they want, then we're going to have a conversation about that. And that's the same thing with the jurors. If I have a question, I will ask it. And I'll try to get the best answer. And if I feel like they're going a different way than I am, which hopefully isn't the case, but if it is, I'm going to ask questions. That's one of the reasons when I was president of the board, I asked questions about the way we were doing things. We changed different things. And I think the biggest thing is the citizens don't speak enough. I guess that's the real answer. Is I don't think that they know enough of what's going on to speak up. And that's one of the things that hopefully I can get everybody on board with my website or the Facebook page, to keep them aware of the issues that are out there, so they do show up at the police jury meetings and that they can have a voice. And to hear their voice, because I do want to hear that. And I think a lot of people potentially rubber stamp stuff because they think that's the right answer. And if I think that's the right answer, and the citizens don't, we'll have a discussion about it and see if it makes sense to them and how they want me to vote. And that's how it should be.
Let's kind of circle back for a minute. What is your prior political experience?
Politically, I've again just on. I'm a Republican. I've always been a Republican. As far as the Political Action Committee of Louisiana Realtors, I've been the PAC chair for many years. So I've met with a lot of our state and even local dignitaries, so to speak, and elected officials to find out what their viewpoints were on different issues. Obviously, being PAC chair for realtors, we were asking what their viewpoints were on real estate issues and deciding whether to back them or not. And if they were wanting to go a different way than what the realtors believed that was best for personal property rights and home ownership, then we tried to explain that to them so they could bring it down to the Capitol. And we've had many days at the Capitol where we've met with legislators to tell them our viewpoints. And again, that goes back to listening to the citizens, listening to the people who are trying to change things and influence that elected official to vote as the people want it to come down.
Good answer.
Well, the last question, and here's the tough one. Here's the curveball. We got to throw you a curveball, right?
Sure.
All right. So are you willing to sit down with a debate with your opponent?
I already am. Well, I don't know if it's a debate. Let me rephrase that. The National Republican Women's Committee is having a open forum with everybody who's there to speak. I'm sure much like this is, but sure, I'd be happy to have a debate. I have nothing to hide. I'm here to represent the people who choose me to represent them. And without a doubt, I know that I am the most qualified and the person who's willing to get in there and get my hands dirty and feet wet to talk to the other police jurors, find out what's going on in their areas, and make it work for everyone, for the citizens of Bossier.
We may take you up on that offer. We'll have to see if we can get your opponent to come in too, but be interesting either way. So, all right, Duke, any more questions or?
I am good. Mindy, appreciate you coming on, and look forward to watching your campaign. And we may put together a debate. Just it looks like things are pretty straightforward in y'all's race, and I hope to learn a little bit more about you and about your opponent, and as much transparency as the public can have on both of you is better for Bossier.
Well, can I say one last thing, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Oh, go right ahead.
Obviously, my Facebook page is always open for any questions. I always laugh when I say I'm a realtor. My phone rings. It doesn't say concerned citizen or prospect. It just says the phone's ringing. And so I'm always accessible, which I think is a huge benefit to the citizens of me being a realtor, because it's the accessibility that I'm used to answering the phone. Unfortunately, my family will attest to it all the time, and trying to get to answers. That's what I do, is I put deals together, I'm accountable for them, and I answer to them. Am I perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. There's going to be a learning curve going into the police jury. There's going to be things that I don't know. I'll make mistakes. Y'all can call me out on it. I'll own it. And when I'm doing things right, help me with that. But my motivation to do this is the right motivation. I have no other aspirations. This is the only thing that I've ever wanted to do, is to stay in this police jury job, hopefully for, numerous terms that the citizens feel like I'm doing a good job and I'm representing them. So be patient with me and I'll do a great job for y'all.
Well, hey, you're welcome back on the show anytime if you need to get the message out. And of course, we'll extend the same to your opponent too and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, hey, thanks for coming on.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Mindy.
I appreciate you.
All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I think she did good, since she is a political novice. I mean, I don't think she's ever ran for anything or been a elected official or politician, so
Well, she had a good message and it was consistent, seemed pretty positive. She was checking all the correct boxes for why she wants to run. So we'll see. And Dawn, I'm sorry I didn't get to your comment. Let me scroll back
I
up. It
tried
was
to
pretty long.
I tried to cover it a little bit. I saw it. That's why I went to where I went, but I didn't do her comment justice, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So anyway, we are paying attention, but stuff scrolls by quickly. Okay,
I
so
almost forgot. I got to eat some more Krispy Kreme. If only I had a Whopper or a
you
Big
know what?
Mac.
I don't have Krispy Kreme, but I do have one blueberry donut left from this
That
morning.
looks like
So
that
I've
looks
got
like
one
Krispy
donut
Kreme.
left. So
That looks like
anyway,
Krispy Kreme.
close enough anyway.
The mask bandits are going to be after both of us.
I know. If they don't get kicked out of the meeting, they were like literally shoving people. Didn't they like cut the feed off of that meeting for like 5 or 6 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, the infamous Larry Bagley from Shreveport. I mean, I swear. I mean, there's a clip that we're going to show out of that. I swear we were watching a rerun of Cool Hand Luke. I mean,
Failure to communicate.
we've watched that before, and it was, what we've got here is failure to communicate.
Very,
I swear.
very interesting.
You'll see it in a minute.
All right, so do we want to go and move into that? Do you want me to get on my soapbox about the Cypress District for a little bit? Where do you want to head?
Let's hit this
you're sugared up on the Krispy Kremes. You're leading this ship
I
tonight.
mean, I'm telling you. Okay, so let me set the stage. So the Health and Welfare Committee, and Larry Bagley is the chair, which I ain't really got nothing for against Larry Bagley and all, but I got to tell you, there was a packed house down there for this committee meeting, and it ended up going 7 hours long.
Wow.
And so I tortured through the 7 hours, and boy, was there some gems from beginning to end in this thing. But where we're going to start off first is, I guess we'll go to at the 0002 mark of actually Jamie Marie Pope, her and her fabulous video taking.
Okay, that's on that Facebook video link, right?
Yeah, now she caught this. This wasn't in the house feed, but she caught this before the meeting, and probably right here in the beginning, what the sergeant of arms said right here in the beginning is probably the most consequential statement that's said throughout the whole meeting.
Really? Okay.
Now, a lot of people, mass people, are going to be watching, and they're going to be like, what is he talking about? He's nuts. That doctor and everybody else said some pretty amazing things. But you got to listen to what the guy says.
Okay, so let me hit play, and let's see if our system audio is going to play nicely tonight. Here we go.
Right. We elected them. We are the people. We the people. They work for us.
Or you have to step out. Maintain order, or you have to step out. Either sit and maintain order, or you have to step out. Please and thank you. You're out of order. It was not acknowledged by the chair.
We're at recess. No, we're at recess.
All right, so I'm going to pause it for a second. That almost sounds like a Cypress District usual meeting. So how far do we want to roll forward in this?
He's got, just keep going. He's got one more comment.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit play. You just tell me when to pause.
Go to the 154 mark.
All right, 154. All right, folks, y'all watch this. This stuff is actually pretty incredible. So let me get up here
And it gets
close.
better and better and better as we go.
All right.
Understood. How are you going to manage anything if the meeting doesn't happen?
We're managing it right here too. That's right.
This won't change anything.
Right there.
Why don't they have masks on? No masks. Yes, it's easy to see us.
Whoops.
Right there. They're trying to hustle everybody in the audience to get your masks on, and you got the representatives all up there on the stage, and they're not wearing masks, and they're arguing. They're at recess.
The guys closest, the guys closest to the guests, those two don't have masks on at all, do they?
Yeah,
Those rascals.
the sergeant of arms said the most consequential thing. He's like, it ain't going to change anything. All they're arguing and all they're talking, and then and I took the way he was saying, them even being there, it's not going to change anything. And I think ultimately he was right.
Wow. And folks, of course, I got to tie this into the Cypress District naturally, but y'all keep watching because I'm going to show you some few seconds of some Cypress meetings that's almost this kind of chaos here. Okay, so do we want to go ahead and play some more?
Yeah, go to 744.
Okay.
And I think this Representative Carter, I mean, here's the cool hand Luke part.
Okay, here we go.
Representative Owen.
Here.
Present. Representative Presley. Representative Stagney. Present. Representative Turner. Present. We have 16 members.
Thank you. Now, yes, Mr. Carter.
The proper way to wear a mask, and a lot of them have their nose out.
Speaking
Are you serious right
Somebody
now?
needs to instruct them on the proper way to wear a mask because they got their noses
Go
out.
on a diet and
This
then
just
worry
will
about
not be
your health.
masked.
Wow.
So
Somebody needs to instruct them on the mat. And there's that guy's in the other video too, and actually shows his mask, which is not sealed against his face, and he's got air gaps on the side, but he's telling them they got their noses pulled down.
he's got a beard, and he's got one of these little old
Wow.
Walmart masks that you and I in the last show covered that doesn't even filter out 3 microns. I mean, and this guy's worried about people with their nose sticking out.
Wow. Okay, folks, this is, I don't know what this actually is. It's
So-
chaos. All right.
It is horrendous. So, okay, now you got to go to the House video. We got to jump over to there.
Okay.
Jamie Marie Pope, thank you. Wonderful job on catching that, because most of that wasn't on the House feed because they stopped the feed. The House
Really?
stopped the feed. Yeah, they're at a point.
All right, here we go. So I'm on the House feed. Let me get over, about to pull it up on the screen here right now.
This meeting will come to order. Please have a seat.
All right, so just tell me where you want to go in this.
So the first
Now,
11
first order
minutes.
of business is there has been a mandate by the governor to anyone that comes in this building must wear a mask or socially distance. Now, obviously, it's not possible to socially distance in this room. So if we have masks for you, if you don't want to wear a mask, there's a room over here to the right, committee room 6. There'll be plenty of spots and there'll be plenty of social distancing. So
I'm going to pause it right there for a second. So to be clear to everybody, this is the same meeting we were just watching. These are just the House cameras giving a different perspective, correct, Duke?
Absolutely. Now,
Okay.
if someone cited, the point to make of what he just said, if someone cited the medical exemption, like if you had asthma or you had whatever, you had to leave. You were separated out.
Yeah, we got a room for y'all folks over there.
Yeah, you're being segregated.
Yes.
You're being segregated. You might as well have had a little yellow badge placed on you and move you to another room. Now, where have we seen those type things of yellow badges, and then we've seen terms of segregation?
Right.
I
And
mean,
that leads right into some of this other video, and that was a great point, is that, yeah, they actually presided over the whole meeting without a mask.
oh, it was rich.
The COVID
So-
has an invisible barrier wall right there at his microphone. That's a special microphone that stops the virus from traveling through the air.
So this drone's on for a while, right?
Right.
For about 11, they cut the feed. So jump to the 11:23 mark,
Okay.
and I think it was at
Whoops.
this point maybe they cut the feed.
All right, bear with me, folks, because this is literally 6.5 hours that I'm trying to jump through.
But,
So,
but we're not going to make you watch 6.5 hours. We're cutting to all of the good points for you.
right. Okay, so here we go. We're getting to the 11:23 mark shortly before. Here we go. So this is after they cut the feed, and then they're coming back in and settling down, right?
Now, as you can see, they're physically.
I'm waiting for them to grab somebody by the hair of the head and just skull drag them out. There we go. My golly, they almost had it by the head. They got their feet.
Oh yeah, I mean, someone described that lady as being 100 pounds sopping wet, and by the looks of it, she was, and she was hollering medical malpractice all the way out the door.
Wow. Now, this is nuts. Okay, so this is where I guess this is where they cut the feed, as they're literally dragging somebody. Oh, I guess he warned them, said, "Hey, we're gonna drag you out if you put your mask on."
You know, and you had the one lady in the back. She was screaming, you know, to don't be a coward, take your mask off. They can't take all of us, you know, and they cut the feed. But if you'll jump to the 2049 mark, well, that's when there you go. That was the Carter.
Okay.
That was where Carter was saying, you know, somebody needs to show them how to wear a mask. They need to cover their nose.
Mm-hmm. Kenneth Jenkins says, how did none of the men stop that? I've got an answer for that, Kenneth, but I probably don't need to say it on the show.
So go ahead and go to the 3730 mark.
All right, so we're going to 3730, right?
The doctor is the doctor of LDH. He's giving his report, and he makes an interesting comment here.
Okay, so we'll be a little before 3730. I can't get right on it, but here we go.
Okay.
Gets reported up to the Department of Health, and then in many cases also reported from us up to the CDC. For COVID-like illness, which is the percent of ER visits attributable to people with certain symptoms, there's a surveillance network of emergency departments across the state which report that data to us regularly. From that, we draw a representative sample.
When you say surveillance, go specific. Talk to us if we're 5, 6 years old. Make it simple. Make it simple for everybody, because I want everybody to know.
There is a network of emergency departments of hospitals that have a feed from their electronic health records into our system that pulls every patient coming into the ED and flags certain type of symptoms. So this is the one measure, the COVID-like illness, which is a more general sense. It's not as precise as incidence of new cases, because it just looks at people presenting with symptoms, regardless of whether those symptoms end up being COVID or not. So it's kind of an overview case.
Now, did you catch that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you catch it?
He's literally verifying what all the conspiracy theorists are saying.
He said it. COVID-like
right
symptoms.
And
COVID-like symptoms.
We want to be clear. At least I'll say from my standpoint, Duke, you can agree or disagree. COVID is a real thing. The virus is real. It is dangerous. It is killing people, blah, 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 all that good stuff. The problem is this misinformation and misdirection and all that that's going on. People aren't stupid. They're realizing this. Okay, so, and I just want to point out that Sage said both ladies that were escorted out came back and testified.
All right, now jump to the I guess the 1 hour mark.
Okay, so let's get up there. Right in there. Okay.
Let it roll.
Fire in the hole.
To that question when I get back. How many beds do we have? How many beds we have left? Are we in a critical situation with beds? And I heard you say something to that.
We're definitely in a critical situation, but it's actually not the physical beds right now. It's not physical space that's our limiting factor. It's staff. And what hospitals are doing is they're asking nurses and docs to care for more patients than they normally would and stretch those resources. And there's consequences to that.
Yeah, you burn them out.
That's it. It's not that the hospital is completely full and not beds. There's beds available. The problem, he just said, was staff to take care. There's not enough staff.
Yeah, and Sage, I believe this is critical, but here's the problem, and I could spend a few minutes and go back and find some, let's just call it mainstream news media feeds where we're told the exact opposite of what he just said. That, hey, brother, I'm glad that you're watching. That there's no more room at the inn is what we're told. And he just said literally the complete opposite. I understand that staffing, there may be shortages in staffing, and that's just as bad as not having a physical bed for somebody to lie in. But we're told the exact opposite. We're told that there's no more hospital beds, the hospitals are full. So
that's right.
This is where the problem is. It's a disconnect in the messaging, and our morons in government need to get their messaging straight. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox again. Sorry, dude.
No, you're going right along there. You and Raymond Cruz, I'm telling you, y'all must have both had Krispy Kreme that day. But anyway, 144 mark. Guess what? We got to drag more people out.
Oh, they're just dragging them out. They need to get a wheelbarrow in there. Drag them all out.
Dragging them out.
All right, so you said 144. We're close to it right here. Here we go.
Here. It's just rude. There are people here to try to get information, and you want to cause a problem. You'll come and speak, but do you want everybody to act like that to you? I don't think so. I'm sorry,
you just can't reach.
Okay, well, ask.
I will leave myself, and I just want to say that this is...
No, we don't need you to tell us anything. Have her move. No.
Oh, Bagley's cuffing and stuffing them, Bubba.
Remove her, please.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know what's, I guess it's not really funny. Is this the video where the lady makes the comment about the muzzles?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I assume we're eventually getting to that. Folks, we're going to talk about muzzles here shortly.
Oh, yeah, slavery and, look, any political debate, you got to get to racism and stuff, and it was not meant in that context at all. I'm not saying that, but it was actually maybe the best statement that I've heard in a long time. I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with this lady. But Representative Eccles, in which next Thursday on Louisiana Watch, Rex, just so you know, in our audience, he's agreed to come on and talk about this hearing and talk about this issue and some other issues going on. So that's going to be interesting. But Eccles really was prepared for this. I mean, if you were watching Eccles cross-examine this doctor, you would have thought, I mean, you were watching something in DC. It was epic, in my opinion. But he got some answers out of the good doctor there that are pretty amazing. So go to the 148.57 mark and let it roll.
Yeah, we're a little before them, but we'll be right there. Here we go.
Hospitals in low hundreds or so.
So your website says 262 hospitals, but that includes surgical centers and other variety of facilities. Is that a close guesstimate or estimate?
Yeah, there's that's including Tier 1, which is a typical hospital, and Tier 2, which is some of the ones you mentioned.
I'm just going off your website. When you look at the number of hospitalizations in pediatric populations, you mentioned 88 last week. Does that mean 88 statewide?
88 pediatric patients were admitted for COVID last week.
For COVID. They were tested and showed positive for COVID.
That's correct.
Okay. Out of the 100 to 200 plus hospitals we have around the state? Or is that just in a series of large centers?
Statewide.
Statewide, okay. So less than one child per hospital across the state. Of the other admissions in the pediatric populations, as I'm sure you're looking at the data, how many are RSV based versus a COVID diagnosis?
We don't get data on that.
Did you hear that?
Well, I would ask that you consider collecting that data just so we can see, because there are other disease states that impact children and adults across the state. You mentioned.
I'm going to stop it right there for a second. Folks, did y'all hear that? Again, he's just confirmed what everybody's been saying, which is one child per hospital on an average. That doesn't mean some hospitals don't have 2 or 3, but on an average, one child per hospital. And that was being conservative with the estimates.
And more importantly, the RSV, he acknowledged they don't get data on that. That gets into the testing. I mean, look, the good doctor here just spilled the beans.
Yeah, and again, folks, we know COVID's real. We know COVID's dangerous. We know COVID's killing people, but there's a whole lot of other diseases out there that are actually killing people as well. And that's what we're trying to present here, is that they're not effectively, at least according to this doctor's testimony, and questioning by Representative Eccles, they're not separating that data. And so as citizens, we get these mixed signals and mixed information, and then of course that gets amplified on social media and instant communications. Okay.
So Eccles wasn't done there. Jumped to the 151.5 mark. I mean, and he gets another unbelievable statement out of the good doctor here.
Okay, here we go.
And one of the reasons for that is the clinical care has changed. And we're not intubating and ventilating as many patients as we were before. We get better outcomes that way.
I'm glad you mentioned clinical care. Let's talk about clinical protocols. Does LDH mandate or send out any protocols for clinical care or hospital care as it relates to COVID protocols?
I don't believe so.
So you have no protocols or no suggestions to hospitals on a care methodology if someone comes in with COVID symptoms?
We typically, when we do disseminate information, we typically disseminate CDC or NIH treatment guidance or another, body of advisory guidance on that.
So
Right-
frontline
right there.
healthcare. And
All right.
Right there, they take their marching orders from somebody in D.C.
Our state health people, folks.
So
Not
they
the
they
people on the
don't
ground here.
they don't have a mind of their own. They're taking marching orders from somebody else. I mean, that right there is what I was talking about when I asked Mindy, that how people are disenchanted with government at the federal, state, local level because your elected leaders don't seem to. It's that, like you said one time, this hive mentality. They don't use their God-given gift of their own mind and make a decision on their own, and they're unwilling to go against the grain. I mean,
Yeah, and it spread just like things spread on social media, some of which obviously are not true. The same can be said about the hive mentality of our government officials and the professionals who we think are supposed to be looking out for our best interest and taking care of things, when a lot of times they're a hive mentality just like the rest of the population on social media. Once you put that little drop in the bucket, it just precipitates out.
Yeah, and look, Eccles was not done here. Eccles was on a roll. I'm telling you, this guy was on his game. So if you had any questions about hydroxychloroquine or the other ones, the other meds, the horse medicines and stuff, hey, guess what? He wasn't going to leave that one off the table. He got on that one too.
All right, so I've queued us up there. I'm fixing hit play. Folks, we really appreciate y'all watching. We're still hovering around 50 folks simultaneously. I'm enjoying reading the comments here. Tag your friends in because, again, and I got to give Duke credit, he sat through like 6 hours watching this video to go through and pick out the interesting points.
It was a long night.
I can only imagine. All right, so here we go.
Availability of monoclonal antibodies, which is a treatment that patients can receive if they have a mild case prior to requiring hospitalizations. And we asked, FQHCs and other primary care centers if they would be equipped to provide that treatment.
what about other lines of defense? Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, Celebrex, Pepsid. You hear about all these different treatment protocols. There are doctors that are using this to treat this epidemic now. What are you doing in that space, and what recommendations are you providing? Because, again, this is an unprecedented thing that's happening. So you're taking unprecedented steps with vaccination, mask, and things that have never been done before. What other programmatic treatment guidelines through medicines that are rapidly available are being used and recommended by your office?
I don't think any of the ones that you just mentioned are typically recommended.
So if we're creating new drugs, and look, I've got a vaccine, I've had COVID, I've gone through that experience, I know what it feels like. I've also taken some of those medicines for other treatments. If I had heartburn, I would take Pepsid. If I had some other issue, I might take Celebrex. Why wouldn't you look or use those in an unprecedented time as one additional option, or recommend that to your primary care, your first line of defense?
Well, we typically go off of established treatment guidelines, and none of those medicines are recommended right now by the FDA or the CDC for the treatment of COVID-19.
I guess more of an innovation from an innovation perspective. Why not, as you talk to some of those primary care, that first line of defense, if they're using it successfully in their clinics? You got to bring all the resources in the world to your fingertips and try to combat this thing that we're taking unprecedented steps, putting people in unprecedented situations. Why wouldn't we talk to those doctors and find out what those treatment protocols are and try to brain trust it and use those treatments, something different, something new?
I'm not following. There are clinical trials looking at those medicines.
So,
all right, let's pause it right there for a second. So it's okay to do all this other unprecedented stuff, but not this unprecedented stuff.
That's right. That's right. And they had a little dialogue about, the vaccines being in trials. The good doctor argued that they're not in trials, and then Eccles retorted back about, that they are trials. I mean, they had a little bit of a back and forth, but at the 155 mark, what are we at right now, Mark?
155.22. And look, I want to say this about the whole FDA thing, because I've shared on the show before that Gina and I went and, got stuck with the vaccination the first round. We still got to do the second round. And I've had some friends, well, it's not FDA approved yet. Well, the same people that gripe about it not being FDA approved are the same people that gripe about the government doing everything else. And I would remind people the FDA is not perfect either. I mean, they gave us silicone breast implants, and we see how much of a disaster that turned out to be. So,
Now, you got to hang in there because we ain't even got to McDonald's and Krispy Kreme yet. Y'all got to hang in there, and y'all got to let everybody know we're not hating on Whataburger this week. We hating on Krispy Kreme and McDonald's.
I just hate to hate on both of those. Okay, so what's the next mark? 159.50?
155.50, and Eccles melts down the good doctor. We got to roll that, and then we're going to move on a little further.
155. Here we go.
To April, May, and June of last year, were we in a complete shutdown by way of the state? Many people told to stay home, lockdown, phase 3, 4, 5, whatever phase we were in. Was that April, May, and June-ish?
I can't tell you offhand what date that we changed from one phase to another. Yeah.
But at that time, did you see hospitalization utilization go down, primary care access utilization go down?
I think what you're asking is, did people
stop going to the doctor?
Delay care during the initial phases? Yeah, I think they did.
Looking last year versus today, are people delaying care as much as they were a year ago?
I don't think so.
That's exactly what I thought.
You catch that?
So you're probably seeing...
All right, so give us the summary. Break it down for all the folks out here in the bleachers.
So the point is that you've got different quantities of testing, and the testing has increased exponentially now. Now, what's the difference between now and the difference between when we had the last quote unquote COVID uprising?
The uprising of the little nanoscopic virus particles.
Were people going to the doctor to get their nails done, or to get, a splinter pulled out of their finger, and, oh, by the way, get a COVID test while you're here? No, the point he's making is, there a disparity between the number of people that were going to the hospital and doctors back then for regular treatments and getting tests, and the doctor acknowledged people were not going? One, maybe was it out of fear? Was it because they didn't want to? They stopped all non-emergency treatments, And then what's the difference now today? All of a sudden, you got a ton of people going and getting regular procedures, and so your testing has increased exponentially. The doctor acknowledged, yes. Well, wouldn't that change the numbers?
The math doesn't lie.
The math doesn't lie. The doctor was stumbling. The doctor was stuttering. He didn't know how to answer it because he was caught.
Yeah, like Jamie Marie Pope commented, okay. All right, what's our next
Okay.
video?
So I didn't do Eccles justice in that right there. Hopefully he can do us justice in that. I thought it was a really amazing moment because if you had the time to watch this and watch it through, you would just like, you could tell the doctor knew he was stuck like Chuck. But now this one's tough for me. This was hard, but I got to give credit where credit's due. So I'm going to hold my nose and I'm going to do it. But it's Krispy Kreme to the rescue. At the 2:34 mark, we got somebody else that moved in for the kill.
Oh, let's see. This has got to be our old buddy Raymond Cruz. And I gotta say, I like Raymond fine. I give him a lot of flack on here because he's kind of the "Where's Waldo" kind of thing. But okay, 2:34. I'm about 30 seconds ahead of schedule. There we go. There's Raymond.
Now the good doctor's out of here, and this cat is John Bell Edwards' guy up there speaking, and Raymond Cruz moves in to just, I'm talking about shellac them.
All right, so he'll be coming up here in just a second. Here we go, folks.
And the wrong one. Go ahead.
Oh, they're looking for Raymond. We've been looking for Raymond for a while, too.
Where's Raymond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's better.
There he is.
You've been gone so long we lost your button.
Of course, this is you're put in the hot seat here because LDH is left, but I still got a couple of questions. I assume you've probably heard of antigen-specific antibodies. Maybe not. Okay.
I mean,
well,
yes.
they're created via natural infection or vaccination. That's why you get these antigen-specific antibodies. What I'm wondering is why we have no emphasis right now in the state on natural immunity.
Well, I'm not sure if.
Well, by that, what I mean is
I know what you mean. But maybe you weren't watching. But Dr. Cantor talked about that. He talked about what he believes based upon the data that we get. I can't remember if he said that.
Well, let me just be more specific because.
Can I finish answering your question before you get to the next
one?
Okay. So. I believe what he said, that the data that we get from either the NIH or CDC is something around, for the state, around 15% or so in the data that they are seeing or somehow have the immunity to COVID. So I think what he's saying is that he just does not see in the data the proof that I believe you and I engaged on this very topic. I know you and Dr. Cantor did last year on this very issue, well before we now are 2 surges later, when you were asking questions of him about herd immunity and things like that. And of course, we've seen that, it's just not correct in that we've seen 2 surges later that where that has not been borne out.
Well, I'm specifically talking about natural immunity. Everybody in my household has had COVID except for me, but I am also the only one taking vitamin A, C, D3, zinc, and all that every single day. I'm not saying that's the key, but I'm saying if we're looking for all those things that may help the state, why are we not promoting those things among the people? Are you familiar with some of the comorbidities for COVID and what makes you really ill?
I'm very familiar with those.
Obesity,
yes,
diabetes, hypertension, all those things. Where do you think Louisiana ranks in all those issues?
We're high.
Yeah.
And we have to protect all those people.
We're dead last in much of them. So our focus has not been on that for so long that we're particularly at risk compared to every other state. It's not that the people are bad or not doing what they're asked a lot of times. It's that we're unhealthy to begin with. So I think that says something about our system. What do you know about the historical volume of RSV and influenza since COVID happened? Before and after, where are our numbers been?
Oh God, I'm not the right person to ask about the what the data show about RSV.
So what the LDH data shows is those numbers have been low since COVID.
Right.
Ridiculously low because, as he said,
I'm not. In fairness, I think mainly you're talking about flu. We have had a significant RSV issue this summer. But so
how far are we to the 240?
So what I'm saying is,
we got about 6 minutes. Shall we fast
Jump
forward?
to the 243 mark.
Okay, here we go. All right, folks. 243 mark as Duke continues to eat his Krispy Kreme bites.
I just can't
Lose
help
is a
myself.
brother, sister, daughter, parent, and that is devastating a family. And we have,
and that's why I'm
thousands and
advocating for
thousands
health
of
measures
families
that
like here.
are known to work. Let me ask you one last question. Is it true that LDH partners with McDonald's and Krispy Kreme to deploy the experimental vaccine?
If you say so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that's a good one. And I do have one more question.
Even Bagley liked it. Krispy
Wow.
Kreme matters.
I got to give Raymond props for that. Hashtag Krispy Kreme kills COVID.
Krispy Kreme matters. Who knew
Wow.
I'd be celebrating Raymond Cruz?
Yeah, who knew? Okay, so we got 4 or 5 more segments here. Do we want to proceed on through these? Because now I'm getting hungry between McDonald's and Krispy Kreme.
Look, you had some of the folks, that was about the end. In fact, I think they shut it down at Krispy Kreme's right there for the legislators, and they started hearing folks from the audience.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the folks from the Unmasked Louisiana group. They had Brandy Pugh, they had Josh Moravant, and a lady by the name of Martina Brown. And Josh Moravant owns a restaurant in Shreveport, actually owns several restaurants. He actually had some really good comments that the folks watching might really love. Let's jump to the 410 mark. He was on the mark. I was impressed with what he said.
Okay, yeah, let me get us up there here pretty quick. And hey, we're up to almost 60 viewers again, so we appreciate that, folks. If you got some friends that want to hear about the state of our health and welfare in our state and concerning the COVID situation, here we go right here. All right, so let's get to the 410 mark. Where are we at here? Okay, here we go. Might be about 20 seconds
and the flu,
ahead of time,
and this could be a bad flu outbreak. It could be RSV. Dr. Cantor admitted himself that they're not differentiating what it is.
Well, look, I appreciate your testimony. Thank you so much for coming today. Sir, would you, now, before you go up, Jennifer Herricks, if you're here, would you come down and have a seat, please? Go ahead, sir. Introduce yourself.
Josh Morvant, Shreveport, Louisiana. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board, for allowing us to come in here and speak to you today freely. I'm all about accountability, and I believe I'm going to leave the facts and the science up to these people that have been talking, because that's way above my pay grade. But what I heard today that was most disturbing to me was, there's 347,436 small businesses in just the state of Louisiana. I own 4 of those. I didn't have a request to write a letter to the governor's office. I want to know if he's basing his decisions on letters that are coming into his office. That should be public record. I want to know who was asked to do that, because his decisions affect everyone. And I assure you that it affected my businesses. One of them, which I opened during COVID and was shut down 11 days after we opened. And I'm going to tell you right now, I invested millions of dollars that I want anyone to contest. That is my livelihood. This committee is part of a bigger picture to keep our governor in check, is it not? Is that a legitimate question?
You can't answer this a question, but what I would say to a business owner,
drag you out. I think they'd have a little tougher time dragging that boy out.
Some men you just can't reach,
Right.
which is the way he wants it.
Yeah, I'm back here and I've got my invisible force shield on, which stops all coronavirus particles in the air, but You got to wear a mask and no questions. Okay, here
Carry
we go.
on, Josh.
Here we go.
Just
This
get warmed
government,
up.
we try to check and balance each other, but you can't ask us a question.
And it wasn't meant to be
I
answered. A
understand.
simple nod.
It was
would've been-
rhetorical, I
yes,
understand.
yeah, it was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
We need those checks and balances, guys. We are in here today, and listen, I left at 4 this morning to come here, and I waited very patiently in this room, in a cold room, I might add you. I don't know how the ladies took it in here because I was freezing. My point is that I want some accountability. They got some letters that got sent to the governor's office. Does that not disturb you guys? That they requested that to be sent to him so that he can justify his actions? That is ridiculous. I want to know who wrote those letters. If you want an accurate poll, send out 347,436 and then do a poll. And let's see what that says. I'll yield my time.
Thank you very much.
And drop the mic. And I want to point out Brother Ed Gonzalez over at Linwood Baptist Church in Shreveport says he will have a group on Friday from 9 to 12 to give the COVID-19 shots, the Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson at Linwood Baptist Church, if anybody's over there and interested. Okay. So this guy's got some good points.
He had some really good points, and from the perspective of I would say, small business owner, and how is it that the governor is taking actions based on a few businesses writing letters to him? I mean, Rex, you're a business owner. I'm a business owner. Just like what Josh Moravant said of that number, I didn't get no letter from the governor asking me.
Right.
Did you?
Well, it's like, like your wife Kara pointed out a couple of shows ago, or actually, I'm sorry, at the school board meeting, we've gone topsy-turvy where the minority, and I mean that in a political and numerical sense, the minority is ruling the majority. And that's not really the way we're set up. The minority has a voice, sure, but we've gone like topsy-turvy. He's using the ends to, anyway, he's using that small number to justify what he's doing.
And it's like what we asked Mindy earlier, in the question. I mean, people feel from the government level, at the federal level, to the state level, to the local level, they're feeling like, their government isn't responsive to them. They basically tolerate the public, and they're looking for the people that are willing to stand up. Mike Eccles, he's obviously one of those guys that'll stand up. I mean, appreciate that plug, Mike. He's going to come on Thursday, and he said there's a bigger story behind all that. Tune in Thursday.
Get some of the inside baseball. Well,
maybe
confirmation bias is what I was trying to think of a minute ago.
Maybe he's going to tell us Seabiscuit was behind the scenes pulling strings or something.
Hey, we found Raymond. Surely we can find Seabiscuit actually pulling some strings. Who knows these days?
But look, the showstopper, we haven't even got to it yet. Yeah, I mean, we've got a show enough race for the cockroach of the week. I mean, and in a good way. I mean, we had multiple candidates. Mike Eccles was in the running. Raymond Cruz is in the running. But there's one more commenter that you guys, you're going to fall out of your chair.
Okay.
I mean, this is fire and brimstone right here, baby.
Is this the 505 mark, Martha Brown White?
Yeah. So y'all better strap your seatbelt on and get ready for this one.
Okay, here we go.
But I'm just here as a parent today. The reason that I decided to come here is because the media has put a sensational spin on all of us that are opposed to masks, as if everyone that's opposed to masks are either white, Republican, or entitled. And I'm here to tell you right now that I'm none of the three. I'm none of the three. I'm just here to support my children. My grandmother, during segregation times, walked my father into a newly integrated school by the hand as she was being yelled at and berated and threatened, so that she could have, so that he could have an education. And if it was not for her courage and other people like her, I would not be sitting in front of you today. And I would have not been able to be educated and earn my degree as well. And now we're asking ourselves, what side of history do you want to be on? Because what a slap in the face to her that now her great-grandson has to put on, has a mask that covers his nose and his mouth, that is stripping them of their morality, their dignity, and their individuality. As an educator myself, I know that to enunciate the vowels and the different consonant blends and different things that that goes into being an educator to teach our children to speak, they have to be able to see lip movements. When I was teaching my students, I had to show them different lip movements, different tongue movements in order to be able to assist them, in order so that they can be able to read. Where are the long-term studies, and this is a rhetorical question, I know there's none, on the psychological, the emotional, and even the intellectual development of our children, that those can be stunted by putting muzzles, or if you want to call them masks, over their face. A mask actually covers the entire face, which you all are wearing are muzzles, okay? It's psychologically, I mean, they actually use it on slaves to break their morality. This is insane. This is absolute lunacy. And as a parent, I will not stand for it. We need to ask ourselves, are we robbing Peter to pay Paul? Are we robbing Peter to pay Paul? Let me elaborate on that. In Florida, they had parents that took masks that their children had been worn all day, and they sent these masks off to a laboratory to be tested. It came back that those masks were carrying all type of bacteria, fungi, viruses, of course, and other pathogens that can lead to meningitis, what could also lead to their deaths. Someone earlier said today, well, it won't matter to you until it's personal, until someone personally dies in your family. Well, my brother, who's a police officer, 2 weeks after the mask mandate went in effect, he had double lung pneumonia. And of course, the first thing they do is just shove a COVID thing up your nose. It's COVID. Well, it wasn't COVID. It was pneumonia. This man who puts his life on the line to protect us all, he had pneumonia, is what he had. I still have a few more things to say. He had pneumonia is what he had, not COVID. Okay? And why do you think that happened conveniently a couple weeks after the mask mandate was enforced or was passed? Because he was breathing in his own saliva and spit and germs for several hours during the day, as if his job is not hard enough. And to my Democrats that are sitting here, you have turned on the people that put you there. You have turned on the people that put you there. And I'm not going to have it. And I'm not going to continue to vote Democrat. And I guarantee you, I am here on the behalf of other people just like me, but they could not be here today because they are working. And everybody that's sitting in this room, you've sat here and listened to these people talk amongst themselves in the echo chamber before they even allowed us to speak. At some point, you're going to have to stand up to. What side of history do you want to be on? That's it.
Mike. Wow. I
mean,
don't even know where to
powerful.
begin with that. Yeah, it is, and it just shows that she's absolutely correct. This is not a Republican, Trump-supporting, conspiracy theorist, Q following deal. It's not. And look, folks, I got to tell you that when I went to the school board meeting that you were at, Duke, of course, I got there much later than you. I was surprised at how passionate a lot of people were about the mask mandate. And that kind of transitions into the vaccine and mandatory vaccine discussion. I was really surprised. I mean, look, people support wearing uniforms to school. I know it's not the same as a mask, but when she talks about individualism, well, by requiring our kids to wear uniforms, I understand the functionality of it, but that's stripping away their individualism. So the argument can be made on both sides.
And you and I have debated this off camera and off show. And in the beginning of this show, I kind of pushed us to have that stuff about Afghanistan in there because the pictures and the images and the video that we saw was the Taliban, all those people in the middle, and then the United States, and this is where I see us in society today. But there's a difference. You've got the government, you've got the people out fighting the government, and then you got all the people in the middle that have been on the sidelines. Just like those people in Afghanistan, I asked the question, boy, there's more of those people in the middle than there is on either side. If all of those people suddenly got motivated and as one turned against one of the two sides that are trying to steer them in one direction or the other, they would prevail. They would take control. I think today, and what we're seeing, with this mask thing is I think the middle and the people that are normally quiet and unengaged are seeing government begin to take steps, and I think they're becoming motivated about it. And I got to tell you, if they start showing up on people's doorsteps with a needle, this thing's going to get ugly. You think it's ugly right now over the masks? It's going to get a whole lot uglier if we start getting mandatory vaccinations.
Yeah, and look, I'll just throw this out there. While I'm all for the voluntary vaccinations, somebody chooses to do that. If somebody doesn't want the vaccine, that's on them. You're right. It's a different story when they show up with guns at your doorstep. And folks, don't think that they won't. I can go back and show you the clips from Katrina when our own sheriff's deputies and our own National Guard members were literally going door to door, seizing guns. Door to door. Broke an 80-something-year-old lady, mid-late 70s, broke her shoulder, bruised her when she was literally trying to hand them or show them that she had, I think it was a little 32 or whatever. So don't think that they won't go door to door and trample on our rights. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but, the way things have been going, who knows? And I want to address one other thing here in a second. So, because Don Thomas is burning up the comments, which is great. We appreciate all of them, even if we don't necessarily agree. Don, we did see your comment, but it was already way up the list when we were getting to the end of that. You are correct that our government officials do take an oath to uphold the Constitution, but let me remind you that we have multiple branches of government. One of those is charged with literally interpreting the Constitution, which is how our rights get whittled away, whether we agree with it or not. So just because somebody says that they've read the Constitution or they carry a pocket Constitution around doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. So we will get to that question. If we go ahead and have the debate, we'll structure a question in that way, but I did want to address your comments. Okay, sorry, dude.
And that gets right off into, in Republican circles, how many Republicans do you know that are not conservatives?
Well, everybody says they're conservatives.
Everybody's conservative.
Yeah. Everybody carries the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. All right, anyway, so
if our viewers have a spare 6, 7 or so hours on their hands, go watch that Health and Welfare Committee and, draw from it the conclusions that you will. And if you want to hear more about it, Thursday night, we're going to hear from the horse's mouth from Representative Eccles, who did a superb job. I would argue that he was probably the most prepared legislator for that hearing, and hat tip to him.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And Kenneth, I want to address your comments. So Kenneth Jenkins says the general who headed up that gun confiscation during Katrina is one of Biden's advisors now. But I'll remind you, Kenneth, that it was W that sent General Honore to head all that up. I personally met the man before. And it was our own local sheriff's departments down there, as well as New Orleans police and others that were in on the confiscation too. So you can't blame it all on Honore. But good point. So, all right, well, Duke, we're at the 1 hour and 33-minute mark. We've been bouncing between 45 and 60. It's been swinging one way or the other. Watching, that's really good for such a long episode. So I want to thank everybody that's been watching and commenting one way or the other. Quick things, quick housekeeping. If you've got something you want to share with us, especially if you want to keep it anonymous, maybe you're worried about your job or, living in Bossier Parish or whatever, create a free anonymous Proton Mail account. Don't put any identifying information in it. Send an email to us at bossierwatch@protonmail.com. We definitely appreciate those, and we do read them. And we'll be glad to take a look at whatever information you might want to provide. Also, you can go to bossierwatch.org. We have a donation link there if you want to donate a little coffee money for us, or Krispy Kreme and McDonald's donut money for Duke. And, that helps keep the show going and keep it interesting.
Now, I'm just wondering, out of all of those characters, surely we got a cockroach of the week. I mean, look.
Well, I had a cockroach of the week set up, but I don't know if I actually informed you or not.
Well, Eccles had the doctor's ears pinned back. I mean, Cruz pinned John Bell Edwards' he made his little guy speechless. And, Miss Brown was just, I mean, I'm speechless about her.
Well, yeah, and folks, so cockroach of the week is not necessarily a negative thing. It can actually be positive and worn with a badge of honor, as a matter of fact, because Duke and I and some of our other cohorts in the Republican Party in Bossier Parish have been called cockroaches before, and cohorts.
Cohorts, cockroaches, we're infamous.
Yeah, or infamous, like El Guapo. Okay, so I had Brian Hammond set up as the cockroach of the week, but we really didn't get into that very much tonight. Maybe it needs to be Raymond Cruz.
I think you're right. I mean, he put Krispy Kreme's matters on the ballot. He deserves it credit. He came out of the cave. He's appeared. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we're going to make State Representative Raymond Cruz our cockroach of the week. Raymond, wear this with a badge of honor. It is meant in a very positive way, because you told that doctor how the cow ate the cabbage, at least with Krispy Kreme donuts. That was absolutely perfect.
I'll take a Big Mac to go on that one.
Exactly. I am like starving now. Okay. Folks, again, we appreciate y'all watching. I know everybody's kind of falling off now. We will be back on Thursday evening. Mike Eccles is this Thursday, right, Duke?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be back Thursday evening under the Louisiana Watch banner. We'll have State Representative Mike Eccles on, and we'll get some inside baseball. We will see y'all then. Thanks for watching.
Good night.